Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to how to get started with APQP for Wind and how it benefits your company. My name is Kim Jokumsen, General Manager of APQP4 Wind. First, we will run very fast through the agenda. It's welcome and webinar introduction now. Then we go to OEM perspective from Vestas Wind Systems and how to start implementation and ensure benefits. And it will be DNV GL and Veritas. And then supplier perspective from FT Technology. And finally, Q&A session, and thank you. I'll give you a short instruction. We will spend around 60 minutes, including survey and Q&A session. You are of course welcome to write questions in the chat during the presentation. Questions will be answered in the Q&A session, if possible. Then we will come back later. The webinar will be recorded and published on the APQP4Wind website along with the presentation material. You will receive an email with link to the recording and presentation material after the webinar. And now we will have a short, fast survey. Yes, you have around 30 seconds. Yes, and here you have the result. As you can see, the most of you have no experience, but it's a little bit of combination. So we hope we can reach all of you. Yes. The next slide is welcome by me. Very shortly, we have a APQP4Wind community, and it is the Secretariat, working group, training providers, company members, country ambassadors, and of course, a board of directors. Here you see our country ambassadors from Brazil, China, Germany, India, Poland, Spain, and UK, and United States and Canada. You are of course welcome to contact the country ambassadors after the webinar. You will find the contact details on our web, and you can have a discussion with them in your local language. We have also a board of directors from Vestas Wind Systems, KK Wind Solution, GE Renewable Energy, Goldwind, LM Wind Power, Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy, ZF Wind Power, and we have an observer from Wind Denmark. And here you see the Secretariat. You will meet Ida Marie later today. And of course, you're also welcome to contact us if there is any questions later. We have also company members. You see the 6 OEMs here: GE, Goldwind, Siemens, MSI, Nordex, Vestas, and a lot of suppliers. And if you want to be a member, you're also welcome. We have also train providers. At the moment, we have 3 train providers who are covering globally, we have Veritas, DNV GL, and TÜV Rheinland. And of course, you are also welcome to contact them. Until now, we have trained people from 37 countries, and we are still expanding. Yes. The next one is an OEM perspective from Vestas Wind Systems, and I would like to say hello to Ike. He will take over now and give you an input. Ike?
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. I'll take that as a yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have control, Kim? Can I cycle through the deck now?
You can.
Or let's see. Or will you do it for me?
Do it. You could do it. No,
should be.
I can honestly. I'll do it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Okay.
The first one is yourself.
All right. Thanks, Kim, for the introduction, and I want to thank everyone who is participating in this webinar. We really value the work that we've done and value our partnerships from a Vestas perspective with all of you, our supplier partners. And it's really important for us to get up to speed. It's really important for us to work together in order to be a competitive industry, and competing against our fossil fuel competitor partners, and doing that effectively to provide clean, renewable energy at a cost-effective point for our customers. Just some background on me, as mentioned here, 20 years of experience in product development and quality. Primarily, my experience has been split between automotive and the power industry, specifically between Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan, where I was a design engineer, and Vestas Wind Systems, where I've been a chief specialist on our offshore platform and systems integration, and now in quality globally for the entire company. So again, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you putting in the time and effort and the participation to speak with us today. All right, Kim, next slide, please. All right, just some background in terms of APQP4Wind and what the organization Vestas specifically is driving for. We're driving more for quality assurance as opposed to quality control. Basically, when we look at quality assurance, we're looking at avoiding problems and preventing them before they do indeed become problems. It's cheaper, it's more cost effective, it's a better time to market, it's a better overall solution. And 3 points that I want to highlight to all of you along those lines. When we started APQP4Wind many moons ago, the idea was to speak the same language, align and mature the industry by making sure that we're all on the same page. And I think we've done a good job at that so far. And with the overall goal, of course, to lower the cost of poor quality. And we're going to get into that specific topic a little bit more. Item 2, pushing more of a quality assurance methodology throughout the entire value chain. This will lower cost. It will help us avoid problems. It'll drive what we call closed loop quality within Vestas, where we take our lessons learned back upstream in terms of designing our products and our processes more effectively. 3, APQP4Wind was inspired by the Automotive Industry Analyst Group, AIAG. It was a group of companies, automotive companies, Ford, my old company, GM and Chrysler, got together and they realized that they had a lot of the same supplier partners. And if they're all giving different direction when RFQs come up, then it just drives more costs, more complexity, and a higher risk of quality issues for all of us. I can remember personally going to, there's a company called Dana Corp. They make rear axles. And they had a line for Ford and a line for GM. And it just didn't make any sense necessarily because we were basically requesting the same product. I came to Ford about 6 years after AIAG, and I saw the benefit of it just in coming 6 years afterwards. And I also already see the benefit of APQP4Wind in terms of what we're doing here today. We're ramping up even more quickly with that commonization, that standardization, working with great supplier partners like you so that we can lower our overall costs and improve our quality across the board. Okay, next slide, Kim. Thank you. All right, what does APQP4Wind mean to Vestas? Overall, whether I talk to my manager, a gentleman named Neil Jones with a lot of great automotive experience and wind experience, or our COO, Tommy Robeck Nielsen, or even our CEO, if he has any questions on quality, it really comes down to, of course, we want to improve quality, but it comes down to being or having an effective business case. So what all of us can do in terms of our quality work, the good work that we do, is lower COPQ, which in turn lowers levelized costs of energy, which in turn will increase our EBIT, our profitability, and our business case certainty. At the end of the day, all the leaders in our various companies, both OEM, supplier partners, our customers, all care about, at the end of the day, making as much of a business case certainty and making our business case as powerful as possible. Basically improving our profitability, and the way that we can do that is at the ground level is lowering the cost of poor quality. And what APQP4Wind, at least Vestas' perspective, what that means for us is working more effectively with all of you, driving quality assurance versus quality control, and everything will then take care of itself. All right, next slide, Kim, please. All right, Vestas expectations within the APQP4Wind Framework. All right, these are our expectations when working with our great supplier partners like all of you. 3 points I want to take you through here. One is we expect a high level of maturity and competency in quality assurance tools. That's identifying, mitigating, and quantifying and mitigating risk. When we say quality assurance tools, we're talking about failure mode effects analysis, design of experiments, correlation analysis, things that allow us to really understand our design processes, quantify them, and be able to turn the main drivers of them like a dial and know what the expectations will be. 2, a structured continuous improvement process, plan, management. Basically, your quality management process to a degree, where when we look at continuous improvement, we're looking at ways that we can take things that have gone wrong and improve them. Drive what I said within Vestas we call the closed loop quality, where we basically use tools like, I don't know, Six Sigma DFSS, designed for Six Sigma, where we actually design our processes around our manufacturing or design our products around our manufacturing processes. And we continually learn and continually get better at that. 3, complete transparency and high maturity and competency in using the QC tools. Things are going to happen. That is understandable. However, when those things happen, Vestas' perspective is we expect complete transparency. We expect to work with you effectively in solving those problems. We expect you to use a structured approach towards addressing those issues. That can include 8D, that it can include 5 Whys, it can include Six Sigma, DMAG, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Whatever your process is, as long as you have a process and you stick to it within your guidelines in your company, and you can show us and demonstrate that to us, Vestas is satisfied. These are the 3 areas that we feel that are our expectations for you to work effectively with us and for us to work effectively with you. Kim, next slide. Thank you, sir. All right. Now, when we talk about changes like this, that APQP4Wind are driving, we're not only talking about, our supplier partners, all of you, changing the way that you work. But one lesson learned that I can remember from AIAG was a lot of times our supplier partners in the automotive industry would come to us and say, hey, Ford, you're expecting us to do A, B, and C, and you're not doing it yourself. And I think those were fair charges that they leveled against us. But again, I'm very bullish on APQP4Wind and how we're driving the same approach, because in our OEM partners, competitor partners like Siemens Gamesa, or GE, I see the same in Vestas, where we are not only expecting you to change, but we're changing ourselves. These 3 points summarize how, at least within Vestas, we're actually driving changes within ourselves to be better aligned with APQP4Wind and better support and work with all of you. 3 points here. The alignment between APQP4Wind and the Vestas product development system and our quality management system frameworks. Within Vestas, we have something called Vestas Way to Market. It's a typical stage gate model where you have to complete all your deliverables before you pass a gate and move on to a new stage. What we're doing is we're actually aligning those stages and those gates to the APQP4Wind stages and gates and deliverables. We're actually adopting what are called our ADSs to match what the APQP4Wind deliverables are. So we're putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and we're making changes. Number 2, integration of APQP4Wind into the complete value chain. That includes design, production, site, and construction and service. Currently, we're going through manual updates, and you're going to see that we made some manual updates to include that entire value chain. But Vestas is already doing that as well, and we're considering APQP4Wind or APQP in general throughout the value chain and trying to drive competency, training, and just general communication and people knowing what's going on. And finally, number 3, and I touched on this point again earlier in the presentation, is monetizing the benefits of APQP4Wind. If you have problems convincing your management team on what are the benefits of APQP4Wind, please go to our website, www.apqp4wind.org, and we actually have a paper set up that details why APQP4Wind adds value to businesses, specifically in COP-Q reduction and what that leads to. And again, we talked about that today. So we're really trying to say quality in and of itself is good, but we need to make it more tangible to our management team, to our shareholders, and to our customers, as well as our supplier partners like all of you. And that is through monetizing the benefits. All right, next slide, Kim, please. All right, in closing, what does all of this mean for the industry? What's the big takeaway that all of you can take away from Vestas based on what I've gone through very, very quickly today? Again, 3 points, and I'm going to hammer it home. Again, COP-Q reduction through standardization, improved quality, which will lead to increased EBIT and increased profitability for all of us across the board. Because we won't be here if we aren't profitable and if we don't work together to do that. 2, acceleration of the complete integration of the value chain together. We can no longer have a siloed approach to things where we throw things over the wall when things are done, deliverables are done, from customer to OEM to suppliers. We have to work as a team throughout the entire value chain to make sure that we provide a good product at a good cost, safely, and on time. And finally, point number 3 ties it all together. No one can go it alone. We're not all, in the United States, for instance, I'm pretty sure everyone knows about cowboys, and they're very independent and very rugged and that sort of thing. And that's not what APQP4Wind is. That's not what Vestas is. That's not what our industry is about. Of course, Vestas is competing with GE. Of course, we're competing with Siemens Gamesa. Of course, we're competing with Goldwind. But at the end of the day, we're one industry that's competing against a larger competitor, and that's the fossil fuel industry. And to do that, we need to be effective in working together as a team, lowering our costs, standardizing as much as possible, speaking the same language, again, across the board, customer, OEM, and supplier, when it comes to meeting our deliverables with regards to safety, quality, delivery, and cost requirements. So again, in closing, please keep this in mind. Our overall goal is to be here as a business. How we do that is working together effectively as a team across the value chain. Again, I think I'm done, but again, I want to thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your participation. It means a lot. And I'm going to turn it back over. And if you have any questions, we have a Q&A session. Please answer or ask any questions that you have. All right. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Ike. It was a pleasure. We will come back to you later.
Excellent.
And next point on the agenda, how to start implementation and ensure benefits. And it will be BNV, Veritas and DNV GL. And the guys, Bent and Ivan, will introduce themselves.
Yes, thank you very much, Kim. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time zone you are sitting in. And thank you for the opportunity to present here. My name is Bent, as mentioned, coming from DNV GL, more than 30 years experience in quality, and of that, 9 years in the wind industry. Apart from that, mainly automotive-based experience from my side. Ivan, will you present yourself?
Yeah, hello, Ivan. My name is Ivan Mikkelsen. Good morning, good afternoon. So my working in the wind business has been for 13 years as an employee by Siemens, and after that as an employee by Veritas, doing workshops and doing trainings, etc. And prior to that, I was quality manager in an automotive-related company for 15 years. So I was listening very carefully to what Ike was telling you, and I got excited a little bit and say, oh, that's nice. If we just act and change our habits a little bit, then there's a lot of fruits that we are going to collect. And now we will go into the speculation about how do we start collecting these fruits when we are an actor in this supply chain. And I came to think about how APQP4Wind started. So many ideas start with grassroots, somebody getting an idea, and maybe it's not possible to realize the idea in short term, and then you fail a little bit or you slow down, and then you relaunch it, and then suddenly somebody puts it into a structure and takes a top-down approach to it, and then normally things start happening because now somebody understood what it was about. So that's the approach we will present here, a top-down approach, how to make it into a company context, even if grassroots working is, in my opinion, very exciting. So I think I touched on all the benefits for various stakeholders, and we put some stakeholders on the left column here, the society itself, the climate, and the investors being definitely winners in this game when we succeed with our efforts. And next to them, you see the developers, that is the OEMs, that's companies like Vestas, Siemens, GE, etc., which together with the supply chain will provide the basis for this. And of course, needless to say, this is in a context of competition. And I think one of the messages here is it should be some kind of fair competition if we are supposed to live together and to develop things together to a better level. Now somebody could speculate, is this only hot air? So look at the gold mine in the left and in the right column of this slide, and you will see that cost and money is going away every day to warranty costs, retrofits, historically, and should hopefully not continue so much. And a very, very central point, which was also the thematic of Ike's expectation for Vestas, work together. So I put this clause 2.6 from the APQP4Wind in. DMATS, that means design for manufacturability, assembly, transport, and service. That means you design your value chain so that every cost factor every step in the process is taken into consideration, so you optimize altogether and not one by one. That's maybe not the easiest things. You cannot close the door to your room and sit by yourself. You have to meet the world, your suppliers, your colleagues in the other departments. So that's the way to create this value, and not what we could call this, the CMA PMC way, cover my ass and protect my comfort. That will lead to no change, that will lead to no synergy. So the result of not succeeding with this is you have control and inspection cost on top of that, because you don't have enough confidence, and you have to align backwards and not along the stream, so you get delays. So there is a gold mine. So now go and get it. So from this top-down approach, you would then start to look at putting APQP4Wind into your strategic mind. And I believe most of the participants today and in the business already did consider that and say, yes, it fits. That is what we want to do. We are players in this game, and we are committed. And the next step we're urging for then is we need somehow to align it with the company's thinking and also with the management system. So it's not an add-on, something we do on a tactical operational level only. It's something we put into our management system in the same way as if we were starting an ISO 9000 implementation or so. And that also means that management will have to pay some commitment in terms of resources into this, follow implementation, and stand firm when resistance occurs, which will most likely happen. As soon as you start changing ways of working, it will challenge old habits, and you need to stand firm and support the change. So the right column, I'm sure these things in the right column never happened in your company. Anyway, acting like in the right column from a management perspective will not support a rapid implementation of APQP4Wind or any other change. So that's something to think about. So just looking a little bit closer into this implementation decision, one thing is the how. You need a plan and a timing. We'll continue with that in a moment. But you could also speculate a little bit about the purposes from a strategic perspective. So where is your list with things you want to do better in the organization? And could you maybe combine this list with some of the things and thinking that APQP4Wind will break up and make coming to the surface? So next step could be look at your quality policies. How could we make our commitment to APQP4Wind clear in the policies? And how could we monitor this against some targets so that we really can see the progress? So I put up some examples in the right column of how the policies could look like. And you can see that is committing to working together along the supply chain with relatively openness. And this is very, very easy to put on the wall. It's less easy to make it happen if your real belief is that they all want to teach each other. And that's why you need to put up some objectives and targets and track progress and see we really want to be like we express it in our policies. Yeah, so that was a part of this, and I think Bent will take you on to some further aspects of the implementation.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much, Ivan. Yes, system gap analysis, plans, and how to ensure that we also gain benefits. But before talking to that, there will be a little survey again for you. So we will start it and give you 30 seconds to respond. Yes, thank you very much for participating. We see here that the practically vast majority, or at least the majority, is saying that the internal structure and incentives to do support working cross-functionally is, for example, that we are working towards department goals and not so much along the string that maybe both Ivan and Ike was talking about. Next up is, as mentioned, the gaps analysis, the planning, the implementation, and how to follow up on the objectives to ensure that we harvest and gain benefits out of it. Starting with the gap analysis. The gap analysis, of course, needs to address gaps along the APQP4Wind requirements coming from the manual. Here, of course, the first one is to identify gaps against your current management system. It is a requirement from APQP4Wind and your OEM or your customers that APQP4Wind must be an integrated part of your quality management system. So for that, you need to identify gaps. What processes is not covered? What process in my existing management system do we take them into? Have that done so that you know where is the gaps, where do we need to update the management system. We need to identify competency gaps, whether it's against quality management, quality tools, or methods that we are using. APQP4Wind is prescribing not only APQP, but also statistical concepts like MSA, capability, the use of risk analysis methods like the FMEA, control plan methodologies, and so on. We, of course, need to identify, do we have the competence needed in our company? If not, identify the gap, make plans to cover it. We also need to identify whether we actually have the resources available in our organization to execute projects in the way requested by APQP4Wind. Not least, the cross-functional approach is very important here, that we have resources within all relevant functions to participate and join the cross-functional team here. But the analysis also need to go a little more against the strategic decision, the policies, and the goals we made when we committed to implementing APQP4Wind. So we must look into our organization and see, are we organized in the right way to support the cross-functional, the co-work between customers, suppliers, and sub-suppliers along the full supply chain? What governance structure do we need in our company to support the implementation? How do management support, promote the project and APQP as we are implementing? And finally, again, of course, also if the competence and resources are available for the implementation. It's not sufficient that we can support specific projects, but we also need the resources to be able, over time, to support the implementation. So, for that, I want to say the implementation is not only a journey or a project. It is actually both. But a journey consists of projects, activities, adjustments. Constantly executing is what we want to do, and for that we would need a project. The project we are talking about here should of course be time-framed, specific actions, targets, resources, and costs. So concept a project, start executing to your project plan. To help doing that, I would like to promote Kotter's 8-step for leading change. Over decades, Kotter's Institute has been observing and seen companies either having a big opportunity in front of them, could be APQP4Wind, or having a big threat threatening the life or the existence of the company. Kotter has been able to document that companies following the structure of the 8 steps, not that they take all 8 steps in a given sequence and follow it to the letter, but use this structure in the conception of their plans, that they are significantly more successful in changing an organization than companies not utilizing the method. So if you feel inspired, go to Kotter's Institute, have a look at the methods, download a little folder or other material to see what it is about if you don't know Kotter. Finally here, implement, monitor, and harvest benefits. Be aware that we are only adding value, creating value whenever we are executing activities. Only making strategies or policies, that is very important, but when it comes to the end, we must also take actions, we must implement. That is when we add value. Doing the actions is not enough in itself. We need to be aware about the verification of effectiveness and efficiency, meaning we need to measure whether the activities we did were successful, effective, and efficient. Think about the plan, do, check, act, very fundamental to all of us being quality professionals, also part of the concept of APQP4Wind. I believe it's page 7, but not really sure. There, APQP4Wind also tried to put the 7 phases into the concept of plan, do, check, act. Monitor and harvest. To be successful, we should monitor. Here I'm thinking about KPIs or PPIs, process performance indicators. How is the processes inside APQP4Wind performing? Are they effective? Are they efficient? Measure it, take actions whenever there is a shortfall. Make sure that your APQP4Wind processes is part of your quality management system and is audited along with your quality management system. That is also another way of monitoring and making sure that we harvest. Finally, use a maturity assessment model to follow progress. There will be a model for assessment available from APQP4Wind a little later or at the beginning of next year. So that was all I had to add or join with here. And to sum it up, I believe we have again a little questionnaire or a little session where you should give an answer. Yes, thank you all. A little higher response rate this time. The question was, in your organization, is there a strategy and deployment plan for APQP4Wind? And here, the majority is saying the deployment of APQP is a company strategy. There are deployment plans and progress is being monitored. Very positive that most of you have identified that and has plans in place to execute on. Thank you very much from my side right now.
So a final perspective to add in from my side regarding the implementation and ensure more than one benefit to open for different purposes whenever you need to do something. We put in here a schematic journey of a company development from a pioneer organization through a structured organization to a matrix organization and to a global partly open boundary organization. And one of the wonderful things with wind power is the diversity. And one of the main differences to automotive is the diversity of maturity along the value chain. So we have all types of organization here. So if we start looking at 12 o'clock, the small new organization, whenever it succeeds with a few persons who have a fantastic time creating something new, they will need some structure. The discussion will come up, and now with APQP4Wind, the basic structure and processes need to get in place. That's more or less a demand from the customers. It's much easier to move something in an organization when the customers say you have to, and you need it anyway. Now, the next that would happen is that together with the processes, you might start building departments, and you might start having heads of departments and departmental goals and incentives, and that's where the dangerous things comes in, because the department is maybe transparent to the head of the department when he looks down in his department, but you need to look also outside your competence cluster, and you need cross-functional work. So it comes to a point where you will introduce this, and it will benefit yourself, and it will also benefit the motivation in your organization. So APQP4Wind provides the push for cross-functional methods and tools in a very specific way, which could help your teams work and take you through a well-working matrix team spirit process organization, which could be the next step. And I believe those of you having worked in such context, again, are in the sky, feel very, very well about it, like a football team winning something. And it could happen that you are getting a little bit self-confident and you don't want to share your knowledge and your methods and your dream team and how it works with the rest of the world. And again, if you stay there, it might not be good for your health. APQP4Wind again defines some push to open the boundaries with the interfaces along with the APQP4Wind process. Sorry. And that could lead you to realizing the thinking of the DMATs, the integrated viewpoints, taking into consideration finishing the designs. I'm losing my voice and I spent too much time, so I'll give over to the next.
Yes, thank you, Bent and Ivan. Thank you very much. Yes, and the next speaker is FT Technology. It's about supplier perspective, and I will give the word to Arefeh.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Hi, everyone. So my name is Arefeh Taghikhani, and I'm here today to give you some perspective from the supplier side. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction to FT Technologies. We manufacture and design ultrasonic wind sensors that go on top of the wind turbines. We supply to Vestas, GE, Nordex, Goldwind, etc. So if you want to learn about us, go to our website and read about us. Please next slide. But if I want to introduce myself, I've already mentioned my name. I'm the Senior Quality Engineer at FT Technologies and also the APQP4Wind Country Ambassador in the United Kingdom. I lead the APQP4Wind project in FT Technologies as well. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to tell you today is three things. First, how we started, what we did for implementation of the framework. What changes, second thing is what changes we saw throughout the process. And the third thing is what steps we took, which hopefully helps you with your journey. So it's already mentioned how important it is to have a policy, a strategic view on APQP4Wind. And this is exactly what we did to start with. Our APQP4Wind policy is also available on our website. I just highlighted a few important points of the policy here for you. So it is FT's policy to understand the needs and requirements of the customer and ensure that the product satisfies these requirements. It's our policy to reduce product complexity and always continuously improve the product and the process aligned with the principles of APQP. It's our policy to provide clear communication to our suppliers and subcontractors with regards to product quality requirements, to reduce the risks of defects, and of course, the cost of poor quality. It is our policy to adopt a preventative approach to quality and simplify the processes to reduce the time to market and increase efficiency, and also support profitable growth. Next slide, please. So the changes we've seen throughout the past year that we've started implementation and adaptation of the framework. The most important thing is the cultural change, I would say. Everything now that we do, any action throughout the organization has more focus on continuous improvement. We now have formed a structured work in the earlier stages of the new product and process design and development. We call it NPD process. The APQP adaptation gave us a chance to have a full review and do a gap analysis on the business landscape at FT. And therefore now we have a better verification and also validation procedure for both products and processes at FT. And also, last but not least, we have our customers more involved and engaged in our NPD processes, which is very helpful. Next slide, please. So if I want to tell you how we did it and what steps we took, I already mentioned about the policy and also the gap analysis we did. But also we held a supplier conference last year in September to engage our supply chain in this journey with us. We had a awareness training for all the managers as well as the relevant personnel in research and development, quality assurance, sales and production about APQP4 Wind. We now have an internal steering committee which meets at least once a month. We review the progress and we review the actions that came out of the gap analysis to make sure that all the actions are smoothly being done. And the progress happens very smoothly with the implementation of the APQP4 Wind Framework. All the new projects that we do comply with APQP4 Wind requirements, but all the standard and mature processes for our mature product that we have, we assigned quality reps for each stage of the production process to come up and develop the PPAP documentations related to these stages. That is all from me. I hope that it helps you with your journey. I give it back to Kim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arefeh. It was a pleasure. Yes, and then we have the Q&A session. So we have already received questions from you. And I think the first one, let me just wait on the yes. It's a question for Ike. What has been an impact of APQP so far on cost of energy? Do we have a quantitative figures? So, Ike, we can't hear you.
Now I think you can probably hear me. All right. Yeah. Okay, excellent question. In terms of how do we quantify the impact of APQP4 Wind? Unfortunately, we don't have cost figures yet industry-wide. But I would count or think that individual OEMs may be keeping track of cost of poor quality and subsequently its impact on EBIT and levelized cost of energy. I could speak for Vestas. Within Vestas, this year, our new CEO, actually he's been around for about a year, Henrik Andersen, has a laser focus on COPQ. He's immediately focused on it. And as a result, as I mentioned before, in Vestas, we're linking COPQ directly to levelized cost of energy and directly to EBIT and profitability. So we're actually putting that model, at least within Vestas, together. And subsequently, that's going to go to our supplier partners as we negotiate contracts with you, as we negotiate warranty improvements from you, and cost downs, et cetera, that will go to you. So for Vestas, we've quantified some of these discussions in terms of what APQP4 Wind is driving within Vestas anyway. I suspect our OEM partners are doing the same. But as an industry overall, I don't know if we can get necessarily a figure, but I do know this. Again, a great question. Our overall levelized cost of energy for wind is going down dramatically, and it has gone down dramatically for pretty much the last decade. We are at the point where we are cheaper than coal, which is a big thing here in the US, and we are targeting in on being just as cost competitive as natural gas. So I think that the work is being done. I think that we can quantify it. And I think that a lot of it is being driven by this standardization, this teamwork, this value chain, taking into account the entire value chain and all of your hard work. I hope that answers the question. Very good question, Arefeh.
The next question is for Ivan. Will you read the question yourself, Ivan?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, hi again. I can speak again. How can companies in these sectors cooperate together and technologically in the new solutions for the wind energy market? What are the technological routes and their potential benefits based on APQP4Wind? It's a very big question. It's a very interesting question. And I think I cannot give you 100% answer. I would focus mostly on this very maybe clumsy abbreviation, DMATs, Design for Manufacturing, Assembly, Transportation and Service. Are we able to encompass all the processes executed by various companies to make an optimum, or will we continue with adding maybe environment and transportation and decommissioning as topics that we need to add on later and have changes and have inefficient part solutions? So I think one of the answers is to be more open to knowledge sharing within the framework of APQP4Wind. But that is, of course, not to be naive. It is you must choose your partners and you must develop confidentiality and maybe also do some business agreements so that you can work efficiently together. So the networking and management of network is something that could balance your effort here. The technological routes and potential benefits, I think it needs a greater analysis or big analysis. The routes, if I understand it, the route in this context is to follow some kind of model with gates and deliverables and always take in the risk management from step to step. And at the end of this, the benefits from this would be a more efficient process. To compare it with what is the alternative to APQP4Wind, and there is no, I mean, it's not an alternative to do nothing. So I don't think we can isolate the effect. More recognize that APQP4Wind is a way to boost the journey and makes it happen and make it happen more rapidly. I hope that was an indication of an answer to a very, very central question. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Ida Marie. I'm the Communications and Marketing Consultant at APQP4Wind. And this was the last question for today. So we would just like to say thank you to our presenters, Ike, Arefeh, Bent and Ivan. Thank you so much for joining today and presenting at this webinar. And I will just leave the slide on for you for just a short moment, everyone. So you can see we have we also have a website that is in English and in Chinese, and we will leave the recordings and the chat log, the questions from the chat in there as well with the answers, and also the presentation for those of you who would be wanting to download those and take a look at them later. And we also have a LinkedIn page where you can follow us and see the upcoming webinars and all our news from the APQP4Wind organization. And before you leave, we just ask you to fill in one last survey, just so we can have an idea of how you found this webinar, and that is coming now. And thank you so much again, everyone, for both for the presenters for joining and also you guys for joining in and attending this webinar.